Hey there, and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete, and today we finally complete another episode of our Rimworld adventures in the Cold Bog with the Cult of Jinx. First of all, apologies for taking a little while longer with the upload this week, but I did unfortunately once again have some minor health issues these last few days. Absolutely nothing to worry about, but in combination with the fact that I also had COVID in March and spent a week on vacation, the upload frequency on this channel did suffer a bit, and I don't like to see that. Still, today we're back with what I think is going to be a great episode, and we also once again have some amazing fan art at the end, so stay tuned for that. Now, last time we left off after defending the village of Livienna against our very first pirate raid, and to be honest, we probably did as well as we could have. So today we are starting things off by grabbing the remains of a trade caravan that did unfortunately get in the way of those pirates, and at the same time we are also doing some wealth management. As you know, colony wealth in this game has a direct influence on the strength of enemy attacks, and so while we will eventually have to increase it to that threshold of 350,000 silver, we do not need to unnecessarily inflate it at the moment. That is why we are first of all dumping the reinforced barrel in the water here, as simply by being dropped on the map it adds a value of 500 silver to our colony's wealth, and since we are likely going to stay tribal for the foreseeable future, we don't need to have that. So instead, we are now letting it deteriorate in that small pond over here. However, we are bringing some of the weapons back to the base, such as the machine pistol or the incendiary launcher with specs here. We are also having Thoraya apply the tech print for jump packs now, as the tech print itself comes with a value of 2000 silver, and there are not really too many trade caravans in this game who are willing to buy tech prints. So by applying it, we now get access to a research project that we are not going to unlock anytime soon, but much more importantly, the 2000 silver are now removed from our colony's wealth. Apart from that though, the first day here remains fairly uneventful until we actually start a new research project in the afternoon, as we are now going to unlock the secrets of Devil's Strand. Now, Devil's Strand is a very good material to make clothing with. Its main issue is its very slow growing speed, so it takes a very long time from sowing the plant until we can actually harvest it. And normally, we wouldn't even be able to grow it in the Cold Bog because that time window of acceptable temperatures is simply way too small. However, I think I have found a way to artificially extend that window and to kind of build ourselves a Neolithic greenhouse, if you will. More on that once the project is finished. For now we can watch Reddini take care of our southern wall, and Armando has also just finished another heavy fur leather armor. Protection-wise, the sharp armor rating is actually a little bit better than normal quality plate armor. However, the blunt protection is much worse and the arms and neck are also completely uncovered, so all of those leather armors that we are making are more along the lines of moderately protective everyday gear, and not necessarily something that you want to expose to sustained enemy attacks. Still, we are putting it on Coco, who so far has only received protection from her parka, but that is of course way too modern for our tastes and will therefore get tossed in the water momentarily. The same is true, by the way, for all of those weapons that our enemies dropped and that we don't have any use for. As soon as they are dropped to the ground, they are added to the colony wealth, whether we want it or not, so the best thing we can do really, apart from trading them of course, is to make sure that they deteriorate as quickly as possible. And speaking of trading, in the late evening we then do in fact have a trade caravan arrive, and they are an exotic goods trader, which could definitely be interesting. While they make their way over to us, Reddini also works on converting that prisoner we obtained in the last episode, and thanks to all of your comments on that video, I think I know what to do with them. Just in that moment, we are also informed of a silver mining worksite nearby. However, a look on the map reveals that it's actually not that close to our base, and getting there would require a lengthy trip through the mountains, and I'm not entirely sure if we want to do that, only to then fight 11 people over 2000 silver. So instead, let's take a look at what that caravan has to offer, and before we do, let's actually also drop that joy wire that Reddini is still holding from one of our earlier expeditions, because as an exotic goods trader, these guys should buy it, and with our current ideology, I don't think that mood is going to become an issue for us. So here we are now selling off 2 joy wires, that reinforced barrel we dumped earlier, as well as all of our luciferium and components. That earns us a nice pile of cash that we can use to purchase the Psy Trainer for the stun ability, a Psycast that Maniac already knows, but Spax does not. We are also grabbing ourselves a Psychic Insanity Lance, in my opinion a very good emergency option to have against those raiders with triple or doomsday rocket launchers. It definitely helps make Livienna a little bit safer, I think. And speaking of which, after a fairly uneventful night has now passed by, on the next morning the trade caravan is still here, and I think they can now help us out with that ancient danger that has been sitting right next to Livienna for 16 episodes. As Specs opens it up, she immediately comes face to face with a good number of bugs, but thankfully she knows how to teleport herself out of harm's way. Since mechanoids are disabled in this playthrough, I think this was a well-calculated risk, and so Specs can now conveniently draw the insects over to the trade caravan. Unfortunately, as you can see, our Woodmaker Dryad Exa is getting a little bit too ambitious in the defense of our colony here, so it looks like we'll have some patching up to do once the fight is over. The traders meanwhile do get away without any losses, and Exa did in fact also survive, and with only a shattered jaw I don't think we need to send our Dryad into a healing pod now. Instead we can have Reddini gain some valuable medical experience, which she is going to need for another small project I have planned down the line. Now, back to the ancient danger, which is in fact not actually fully cleared yet. We did, however, already uncover an excellent quality charge rifle. Still, we also have 3 crypto sleep caskets to open, so let us once again send in Specs to see what's inside. Alright, looks like the casket we opened actually has a dead person inside. The other 2 not so much though, so let's once again skip out of here. Unfortunately though, Specs did get shot on the way out, and also in the mostly unprotected arm. I am sure though that Dr. Reddini will shortly take care of that. Meanwhile, the 2 remaining survivors are going up against each other, although it looks like one of them is able to flee here, and that might be a good opportunity to take a look at their stats. Candidate number 1 here would probably make for a good animal handler, trader and recruiter. The quick sleeper trait is a nice bonus on top, and she also does not have any long-lasting injuries. Candidate number 2, meanwhile, could fill the much-needed role of a competent doctor in Livienna, not to mention that their nimble trait also goes very well with their solid melee skills. Injury-wise though, we are looking at a bad back, but also at an immuno-enhancer, possibly to at least partially counter the downsides of the sickly trait. In any case, before we focus on the 2 of them, we have a prisoner to convert, and thanks to Reddini's persuasive powers, the Cult of Jinx has now gained another member. Now, there is still the matter of recruiting them, but we'll get to that shortly. First of all, though, we can see that the list of further recruitment candidates is unfortunately down to only 1, so it looks like Aardvark here did not get away after all. Still, perhaps we can down and then capture the other woman with Maniac here, but unlucky as we are, he shows off his sharpshooting skills in the worst possible moment and instantly kills the Surgeon Owl with a well-placed shot to the leg. Now, this is certainly frustrating, but we can't really change it. Let us at least open up the hermetic crate inside of the ancient danger though and hope for something good. And another tech print that is moderately useful, I suppose. It does come with another market value increase of 2,000 silver though, and unfortunately, while the trade caravan here is willing to buy it, they are only willing to do so at a massively reduced price, so we'll content ourselves with only selling a few more components here. Now, Aardvark also wore a marine armor, which we are now going to carry back to the base, despite its tainted state. In my opinion, the protection that this thing offers far outweighs that small mood penalty. As you can see, we are also butchering some of the insect corpses to make kibble from them, and Thoraya is once again applying the tech print now, just to get rid of it and to obtain some valuable experience points in the intellectual skill. The animal handling skill of Coco, meanwhile, is also progressing nicely, currently at level 13, good enough to finally train our grizzly bear Dr. Thunder in hauling. His female partner Vladimir seems to be a bit slower, but at least we now already have 1 bear helping us out with hauling duties around the base. During the night then, we can also see that the artwork on our new charge rifle does in fact represent a beetle, with the lower part of the image dominated by a tree. So definitely a fitting motive, considering where it came from and who it now belongs to. A short while later then, we have cargo pods dropping in, this time containing 40 units of herbal medicine. Normally a pretty nice drop, but considering the amount of medicine we already have, hauling this stuff back to the base is probably not the highest item on our to-do list. Still, we are going to build another shelf to store it, just as grizzly bear Vladimir gives birth, and so we now welcome Ignacio to the colony, a name as always chosen from the list of patrons in the naming rights tier and above, which you can of course also join if you want to support what I'm doing. Our ancient danger, meanwhile, is actually turning out to be an interesting food source for more than one reason. Not only have these still existing hives just spawned some delicious insect jelly, but we are in fact also leaving these hives intact to spawn more bugs in the future, so that we have a consistent source of insect meat. Combined with our 2 berry maker dryads, this basically gives us an infinite supply of kibble, a big step towards becoming a more sustainable colony. Insect jelly, by the way, does not spoil but does have a chance to cause food poisoning, so we are going to store it inside of the ancient danger for the moment. Perhaps we end up using it as an emergency food source or we sell it. The stuff does actually fetch quite the good price. A little later in the day then, Armando finishes a rhinoceros leather armor, and he can now put that on himself and also get rid of his old parka. Other than that though, the day remains mostly uneventful. We are constructing another shelf here to help with the storage situation, and in the evening Reddini finishes our small bridge wall to the south. Again, the plan here is to use that wall to force our enemies to walk through water as they engage us, but of course we also still need to close off a few more entry points for that to work effectively. In the meantime, Tuk goes on a somewhat unfortunate food binge, and while we do have enough food at the moment, that could quickly change if he keeps this up for a few hours, so I think it's best if we just arrest him right now to snap him out of it. With Reddini and her social skill, we can do that relatively risk-free, and then immediately release Tuk again afterwards. The resulting -6 mood penalty is easily countered by various aspects of our ideology, so despite that penalty lasting for 12 days, this should not have any long-term consequences. In the middle of the night then, another set of cargo pods drops down, and this time we have even more pigskin inside. However, we are already pretty much swimming in the stuff, so hauling this back is once again not a priority. The next morning then begins with Jekna throwing a party for the Cult of Jinx, and even though that consumes a good amount of food as well, we will of course let everyone attend. Well, everyone except for Maniac, who is still defending the colony against some hungry boar. However, the opportunity to socialize does pay off as we have a new couple to celebrate. It looks like our latest recruit Armando has fallen in love with Reddini, and the two of them are actually also matching up quite well age-wise, with the 59-year-old Reddini just being 5 years older than her partner. Now for the next night we will of course change the sleeping accommodations for the two of them, but first, in the afternoon, we receive the results of yet another relationship, as female Muffalo Cheeseman is now also pregnant. Now, you have likely seen the blueprints. I had actually hoped to prevent another Muffalo pregnancy by splitting males and females into 2 separate pens, and it looks like we were not quite fast enough with that. Now, I think we'll manage, and for now we'll spend the rest of the afternoon bug hunting. A couple of mega spiders have already hatched from the hives, and I think it's a good idea to take them out before their numbers increase even further. For our skilled shooters, that is not much of a challenge, and a few hours later in the day we are also rewarded with a work frenzy from Maniac, so for the next 8 days he will now work much faster. Now, with the latest wood drop, we can now also construct our second animal pen here. The setup is quite simple, I think, just a small pen and some storage for our kibble, and then we will assign the left side to the males and the right side to the females. In my opinion, that is the much more flexible solution compared to sterilizing all of our male muffalos, because as soon as we need more, we can just put them back together, while sterilization is a bit more permanent. On the following morning then, Armando finishes his work on a masterwork rhinoceros leather cape, and since capes are actually the only clothing item protecting our colonists' arms and necks at the moment, this is of course a welcome sight. As such, it will now go on colony founder Specs, replacing her old muffalo wool robe, which may have been necessary once for temperature reasons, but definitely isn't any longer. And since the need for more protective gear does of course never really stop, the sight of another mega sloth is of course also very much welcome, and with the help of Jekna and his psychic stun ability, Maniac can easily hunt it down. Now, at this point, we should talk about that quest we received last episode, the one that gave us this prisoner here, who, if we play along, will be taken away in less than a day, and in exchange we would receive a masterwork bed as well as some silver. However, reading through the comments of the last episode, I was very happy to see that most of you guys think the same way that I do, and that our prisoner here might be much more useful to us as a member of the colony. So that is exactly what Reddini is now recruiting him as, and as a result we fail the quest and receive a small relationship penalty with the Empire, but much more importantly, the village of Livienna has just gained a potentially very useful new member. Now first things first, let's give him a proper name, and this time Chutney was randomly selected, so congratulations and welcome to the colony. What Chutney brings to the table are excellent combat skills, a work speed bonus of plus 40% and a proficiency with plants and animals. Sadly though, he is also still going to be paralyzed for the next 23 days, unless we invest 10 units of Glitterworld medicine into a procedure that could cure his paralytic abasia. Now coincidentally, we do in fact have that medicine as a result of another quest, but sadly we are simply lacking a doctor skilled enough to administer it. That is why we are pushing hard for Reddini to reach that 5th level in the medical skill which is required for this, but it might take some time until we get there. In the end, I think we'll have to see whether or not the procedure is then still worth it. For now, the paralyzed Chutney joins Armando in his workshop, while Armando and Reddini have received the old band of Thoraya and Maniac in the room next door. Shortly after then, we receive another quest, once again pertaining to the Horn of Edmo, and we did actually already complete a quest just like this just a few episodes ago. You might remember that one where we hacked the space drone right next to the base. This time, however, instead of tribals, we would be attacked by outlander pirates every 8 hours, so I'm not entirely sure if that is something we want to accept right now. At the very least, if we do, we should get our base a bit more fortified beforehand, so let us now close off one of these smaller western sections over here, and once again nothing too fancy, just a granite wall with some sandbags in front of it. While Thoraya and Reddini take care of that and improve their respective construction skills, we are also informed that the bug hive has now reproduced itself, which means we now have a few more insects roaming around and a new hive to spawn even more of them. And we are also going to receive that same message again very shortly, because we did of course leave 2 hives intact. In the meantime though, we are also informed of an interesting opportunity, as some tribespeople are sending us on a Thrumbo hunt. Now I believe this quest type is actually added by the Vanilla Factions Expanded Vikings mod, but we will definitely not say no to it, as it is happening fairly close by, and we would even receive a skill trainer for the mining skill on top of it. As expected then, the second bug hive reproduces shortly after, and at this point we should probably do something about that, because in about 3 days' time 4 hives will then reproduce and spawn a new one each, and despite our shooting skills that could get a bit uncomfortable. So on the next morning we assemble our troops and start by taking out the small mega scarabs. In my experience, those can actually be the biggest pain in the ass, as even multiple skilled shooters sometimes have a hard time hitting them due to their size, and while they are not too dangerous individually, there are plenty of them and getting swarmed is about the last thing you want. As you can see, a well-placed vertigo pulse is also a great way of keeping a small group of bugs occupied, and even though Thoraya does suffer a small injury in the melee fight here, overall I'm not really worried about our odds in this fight. Once again, the river between us and the insects is of course a tremendous help as well, and so after a short engagement all bugs have been eradicated, at least for now. To keep it that way, or to at least prevent the next wave from getting a bit too strong for us, Specs and Maniac will now destroy 2 of the hives while leaving 2 others intact, and that way we should be able to ensure ourselves a steady influx of insect meat without becoming overwhelmed by their numbers. Thoraya's injuries, meanwhile, have already been patched up and she can now tend to her Garandan tree, and a few hours later we learn that Vladimir is pregnant once again, and contrary to our muffalos, we do not want to prevent that, at least not yet. As far as I'm concerned, our army of bears is only just beginning. The evening then brings with it some bad, but also not entirely inconvenient news, as we learn that Specs, Thoraya, Maniac and Reddini have gotten sick with the flu. Now, Reddini getting sick is a bit unfortunate, yes, but the flu isn't terribly dangerous in this game, and once we have her attended to, the other 3 patients will provide ample opportunity for her to increase her medical skills. So this might very well end up being a blessing in disguise, although as you can see here, with about 2000 experience points still left until she reaches level 5, I don't think that we should be celebrating too early. On the following morning then, Tina gives birth to yet another muffalo, and so we have to give out yet another name, and this time the muffalo will be named Cindy, after longtime Patreon supporter Cindy Chan. That now makes it 7 in our herd, with Cheeseman likely providing number 8 shortly, probably a bit larger than we need at the moment, so selling off 1 or 2 of them might not be such a bad idea. To make matters a bit worse, our 2 grizzlies, Dr. Thunder and Vladimir, then also come down with the plague a few hours later, although at least for animals this is thankfully not the deadliest of diseases, so if Reddini does a moderately competent job then the 2 of them should be fine. By the way, just a fun fact on the side, all of these medical procedures are somewhat complicated by the fact that Reddini is half blind, and still, just because of her skill level, she remains our most trustworthy doctor. As you can imagine though, finding someone else to take over that role is pretty high up on my list of things to do. Sadly though, they won't simply fall out of the sky, unlike the flash storm that strikes the Cold Bog in the evening. Luckily for us though, pretty far away from the village, so nothing to worry about. As the storm then passes on the following morning, it is replaced by a psychic soothe, and so all females in Livienna will be quite a bit happier for now. Around noon then we have another set of cargo pods coming in, and their contents are definitely interesting, as we are being gifted just over 100 units of human leather, just enough to make a leather armor from. In any case, I think it's best if we bring this into the safety of our village. Back in Livienna, meanwhile, most of the colony is in fact spending the day in bed to recover from the flu, and so the day is admittedly not overly eventful. In the evening, our grizzly bears have already developed plague immunity, and it also looks like the flu won't cause any major complications for any of our cultists. Around midnight then, we once again receive news from the bug hive, so it looks like our small extermination squad will have something to do tomorrow. Before they can move in, we receive the good news that Thoraya has finally unlocked the secrets of Devilstrand, and so I think we will start planting some very soon. For now, let us unlock the passive cooler next. I think that should be quickly done, and it might even help us with the storage of some of our meat. Now, one thing that I sadly completely overlooked during all of this were our Gauranland trees, and so the trees for Thoraya and Specs have both lost a significant amount of connection strength. So much in fact that we have lost 1 berry maker and the only medicine maker dryad, which could have easily been prevented with just a few hours of pruning work each day. Now that one's on me, but it hopefully won't hurt us too much in the long run. We already have enough berries and medicine as it is, and in a few days everything should be back to normal. Until then, it's time to kill a few more bugs, and even though half of the colony is still sick, this is going very smoothly. One after another, the insects all go down, and eventually Tuk can move in to take out a few of the hives. This time we are leaving only 1, I think that should be enough for now, but of course we can always adjust that based on how hungry our animals become. Now, since the episode is already a bit longer than I had planned, let us now jump ahead to the last thing worth mentioning today, as Specs and Maniac have once again spent enough time at the Anima tree to unlock another Psi rank. However, with their flu still not fully cured, I think the 2 of them should get back to bed now, and so we will have another tree linking ritual in the next episode. The target of that ritual will then once again be Specs, I think, as rank 5 has some of the most useful psycasts in the entire game, so I am really excited to see what we will get. Until then, let us now transition over into the fan art section of today's video, and we start things off with a pixel art piece from Fly Mobile. Per their own explanation, this is supposed to be a piece from the perspective of our storyteller Randy Random, with each page of this book referring to a noteworthy event, and I think the 2 of them both happened in episode 15. Now, the following 2 pieces come from Chrysaor and Tony Murchison respectively, and I don't think they need much explanation. So instead, let me shift your attention from what you can see to what you can hear, as we also have some fan art of the musical kind today. What you can hear in the background is a piece called The Cult of Jinx, made by Joe Chappell, who actually composed it as a theme specifically for this series, and I don't think I have to mention just how awesome that is. I think I will upload the entire song in full in a separate video tomorrow, but to allow you to enjoy at least some of it without me talking over it, I think I will spare you the usual calls to action today, and instead I can just say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.